Hello and welcome everybody. This is Robert Forto and you're listening to an interview I conducted with Mike Williams. He is a Yupiaq native Alaskan from Akiak, Alaska, and today we're talking about subsistence hunting, fishing, and gathering, and we're doing a project for the University of Alaska Anchorage environmental ethics class. Here's the interview.
Yes, my name is Mike Williams. I'm from Akiak, Alaska, in western Alaska, near Bethel on the Kuskokwim River, and I've lived all my life out there. I was born in my little village of 300, and that village is Akiak.
In Akiak. And how old are you now, Mike?
I'm 63 years old. No, I think I'm 63 years young.
63 years young. Very good. And you're also a musher. You and your family have ran Iditarod several times. Is that correct?
Yes, I've done 15 Iditarods. My son's done 6 so far, and my younger brother did 1 Iditarod, and so we've done a total of 21 Iditarods, I think.
21 Iditarod. So, growing up in rural Alaska in the villages as a young man, what was your family like? How many brothers and sisters did you have? What did your parents do for work back then? And maybe tell us what you do now for employment and what your family's like. How many folks you have living in your home now?
Yes, my dad and my mom, Tim and Helena Lomack Williams. I had 6 brothers and 2 sisters, and we grew up in Akiak in a small village without electricity, without running water, and with no telephones. And we basically lived with the land or off the land, and hunting, fishing, and gathering for our food. And without that, we could not survive without practicing that. And every spring, we would go spring camping right around end of March or first, in April, and be in spring camps. We would return right after the breakup from the spring camp on the tundra. Mm-hmm. And then we would take a little break and get ready for fish camp, and we would move several miles away from the community to our summer fishing camp. So all summer we're fishing, and then we would pick berries in July and in August, and we then we would after that we would hunt for moose in September and gather mouse food or other greens during that time, and then my dad was a bear hunter, and he would hunt some bear in October, and we would continue to fish probably 10 months out of the year, fishing under the ice, and we would set fish traps in October until like around Christmas, and get the burbot on the Kuskokwim River to feed our dogs and to feed ourselves. So it's continuous fishing and hunting and gathering to survive, and that's how we grew up.
So growing up in the 1950s with all of your brothers and sisters, was that a good majority of your guys' diet? And pardon, I don't know a lot about Western Alaska back then, but did you guys have access to, to grocery stores and things like we have now, or was it pretty much a subsistence lifestyle back in the 50s?
It was basically subsistence lifestyle. We would make maybe once a month trip to Bethel to get our groceries, and I think getting some rice, flour, sugar, salt, and that was a basic shopping we did. And that's what we lived on. But for the most part, it was fish. For the most part, that we survived on, and for red meat, it was always moose and caribou, or rabbits and ptarmigan, and in the spring we would trap and hunt the muskrat and have half-dried muskrats and beaver as well. But I think it's basically living off the subsistence foods, and we never heard about people having diabetes or having trouble with their dental. But I think basically, with all those subsistence foods, people were generally healthy, very healthy, except when we first contacted the people coming from the outside, and that's when we started experiencing health issues from those diseases being brought in by outsiders to our communities.
Right. So with a large group of kids there in your house in the early days, did the kids have their own jobs? Did you guys do certain things? The brothers did this, the sisters did that. Did the oldest one go out with Dad, or did everybody go out with Dad? How did the dynamic work in the hunting and gathering?
Well, pretty much as children, we hung around the camps and did our chores, packing water, chopping wood for firewood, and getting wood, and also our dad would take us out at early young age to show us how to hunt migratory birds, how to trap beaver, how to trap muskrats, how to tell us about the terrain and where to fish for blackfish, where to fish for pike, where to fish for salmon and whitefish, and it just going out constantly with my dad, and more so when we were into our teens, and the major thing when we went out and when I caught my first catch, my mom would have a community or a camp feast for us, for
right.
each person that caught something, a game or fish or something. It would be a sense of celebration.
Sort of a rite of passage.
I think for the most part, it was always the younger kids were staying home, and my sisters would learn how to take care of the game, the fish, and to prepare that, and that's what they did. So everybody worked hard every day to prepare the food, to catch the food, and to preserve it.
So back then, and then we're going to advance a little bit through time a little bit. How much time did you guys spend doing all of this hunting, gathering, and the chores out of a 24-hour day? How much time, as a youngster, maybe up through your teens, was spent doing this?
It was kind of constant. We did that consistently every day, from the time we get up in the morning and the time we go to bed in the evenings. And I think we had something like every day was a lot of chores, a lot of work, but then we had time for ourselves to go out hunting rabbits on our own, or going out to do other things and going fishing. And
right.
Basically, we knew what to do. But it was basically from morning until the evening time that we did a lot of our chores. The water and the firewood was very important.
So when did you notice things started to change, Mike, in terms of maybe not your family in particular, but the families around you, the communities around you? When did things start to change, to tip to, the other way with people going to the store more often, when they began to go, into Anchorage to fill up their coolers and that sort of thing, whether they're flying or whatever? At what point did that start to shift?
Well, I think it was in 60s that they required us to go to school. We had BIA schools, and then the statehood happened in 1959, and then the state started, providing education to our communities. So it kind of started to change from that education in our UPAC way consistently throughout the year, and our grandfathers, our uncles teaching us to do things, and teaching us about laws and about the way of doing things, and teaching us. But the BIA schools and the health services, because of the health issues that cropped up due to the first contact, with TB, chickenpox, and measles, and other health issues that came, and then educational, building schools, and building a hospital in Akiak to take care of the health issues. I think that started to limit our camping and going around from camp to camp to live off the land. We began attending these schools, and also dealing with the issue of a lot of death at the young age of a lot of people with health issues, and they started to build orphanages, particularly the one that I know of is in Quithluk or near Quizlic, and they built an orphanage, and a lot of those people that had no more parents started to go to these orphanages and children's home in the Quizlic River, or some of them would go to Holy Cross, and those mission schools, because of no parents, and dealing with those issues. So that kind of forced us to see that change, and I think the statehood and the change especially in 1971, when Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act was passed, things started to change from depending on subsistence and getting into cash economy. And then oil development happened, and it was something that people were depending on getting more electricity, trying to deal with the issues of water and sewer and et cetera. And it continued to have the importance of having Western education, and also many of us started to head out to boarding schools in Mount Edgecumbe or Chuma Indian School in Oregon, or in Chilocco Indian School in Oklahoma. So a lot of us were sent out to get our Western high school education. So I think in a very short period of time, from that a beautiful way of life into all of these changes. The changes were pretty hard, and we started seeing people using alcohol, and we would have to deal with that and seeing it in our eyes in front of us, and that was a huge change from living a good life out in the country, and seeing all these changes. And then in 1971 and 70s, we started seeing more alcohol coming in, and getting liquor stores and etc. In some of these in Bethel, and but I think we started seeing suicides, domestic violence, and more so during those times of people having more money, and public assistance was available. Then food stamps came, and then people would depend on more grocery stores to get those, and we started seeing more and more suicides happening. Wow. And in a very, very short period of time, especially from mid-70s until about 1990, we've seen the breakdown of the communities, and dependency setting in, and rapid change happening in our communities. So the and continuous pressure on our fish and wildlife management, and they would start limiting our subsistence hunting, and fishing by law. They start telling us when to fish, when to hunt, when to do these things which we never seen before.
Right.
Whenever we need something, we would go out and get it. But now, with more regulations, more, I think the commercial industry came in and dealing with the issue of management of moose and other resources. And more and more regulations came in, and then we had to, at one point, my grandpa was having trouble with the game warden, or saying that he can't go hunting, and people are hungry in the springtime for fish. Birds, which we depended on for thousands of years to eat, and but then they said, no, you cannot go hunt migratory birds. You're going to be arrested for that. So we had to deal with the game warden. So those policies had a negative impact on our way of life. And seeing these changes in my short 60 years, it's a rapid change. Right now the issue of diet and the ability to fish and hunt whenever we want, it's becoming limited and becoming a big issue in our communities, and it's just not a good feeling when we're not in a table setting these policies. But anyway, I think we need to to preserve our languages, our culture, our fishing ways of life, our hunting ways of life. We need to continue to pass this down to our generations. But I think we're losing our languages rapidly, and having to deal with the issue of dependency on government for a lot of these things, which I've seen growing up, and then seeing that change from being free into being dependent on someone else.
So, Mike, just a couple of more questions, if we could, just to sort of bring this full circle. Right now, how much of your diet or your family's diet, or even the community at large where you live, how much of that is subsistence, and how much of it is bought, whether it's at the grocery store or whatever? What would you say?
Right now in my household, we're 80% dependent on our fishing and hunting. We need to continue to eat our foods because of the prices in the grocery stores and cost of transportation and etc. So 20% of our budget is going to grocery in my own house, and I think there has been a lot of increase in food stamps and public assistance for more groceries, and people are dependent more on the grocery store bought foods, and there's processed foods, and it's just I think negatively affecting our health issues with diabetes exploding in our communities, and high blood pressure and health issues coming up due to diet change. But I think right now, and having to deal with the issues of hunting and fishing issues, and the need for our people to continue to do that is very precious to us, and I think that needs to continue, and the policymakers need to continue to work with each community, with each and keeping the communication going, and it is very, very important to have all that traditional knowledge be incorporated into setting these policies by the state or the federal government, because I think for the most part our traditional knowledges and the information has been set aside for the most part, but I think right now I think we need to capture that back and to make those things right again, to make sure that the fish and wildlife sustain themselves, and in times of shortage that we are able to deal with these issues to continue our way of life. So big changes, and I don't think it's going to get any easier anytime soon. But everybody has to sit down and to continuously work these things out, both in rural areas and in urban areas, and that communication has to be there, and respect for all of the areas that have been, we've been living here for thousands of years, and we need to keep our languages and cultures alive, and if we do that, I think we'll continue to have healthy communities. So I think, and those policies that were set in recent times, I think we need to take a look at those policies again, and to make restore some of those that we've lost over the years, and to make sure that when those policies are set, that the voices are heard, even in the smallest village in Alaska.
So, Mike, one final question, if I could. I know that you spend a lot of your time speaking to many people about a lot of these policies that you've mentioned, plus many more. The next question regards the future. One of our key components of our ethics studies is, future generations. What do you foresee in maybe your kids' grandchildren or their grandchildren, say 3 generations from now? What do you see happening then with subsistence hunting, the lifestyles that you guys live now? How do you see that play out in, I guess, maybe 70, 80, maybe even 100 years from now? Where do you see them as a culture from where we are right now?
Well, first and foremost, we have to preserve the land that we have right now, and we have to preserve it in perpetuity. We have to have control over our resources, and with the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, with measly 44 million acres, that seems a lot, but it's not. But I think land is so important that our people hang on to it and not lose it for future generations. And we're always thinking about 7 generations down the road. But the way things are, I think our
land is in a vulnerable position and because of the fee simple status of the land, and that is my huge concern. If we can put our lands and protecting them from being sold or lost into the future, I think that's most important for my children, my grandchildren, and our future. And without land, we cannot exist, because we depend on the water, we depend on the land, we depend on the knowledge that we have, sharing our languages and culture. And, I just want to make sure that our educational systems, our governance systems reflect of who we are as indigenous people in Alaska. We have Thinking Haida and Tsimshian down in southeast, and we have Wenathan, Aleut, and we have Yupik, Chupik, Siberian Yupik, Inupiaq, Athabascan, Gwich'in, and Atna, and other cultures. So I think it's a diverse state here. I think we need to preserve the languages, the cultures, our land, our resources into the future, so we will continue to live in a healthy environment, and to make sure that we have clean water and clean environment for our fish and our wildlife to continue to sustain themselves. But I think in managing these resources, I think we all need to come together to make sure that our resources survive into the future, and to make sure that that our communities are healthy. They have safe water to drink, and good educational, good schools, and have all those opportunities, and knowing who they are. Yeah, I really want to make sure that my grandkids and my great-grandkids in the future to know who they are, to have the languages, the culture, the way of life that I've briefly seen early on, to continue that. And I'm trying our best to teach this to our children, and continue that effort to make sure that we preserve ourselves as indigenous people and our languages and culture. Again, a lot of work needs to continue to be afforded to our communities, and it's a challenge with the rapid changes, but I know that we can sustain ourselves with the knowledges that our elders currently have, and to preserve all of that knowledge and put it in writing or paper or in a computer, and to preserve it for future generations, so they will know. And I want my future children to say, we remember Mike Williams saying these things, and that's what he's done these things because he believed that our languages and culture, and they fought to preserve our land and our waters and our subsistence hunting and fishing rights. So I want them to know that we cared enough to protect our way of life.
Well, Mike, thank you very much for joining me today. Mike Williams, a subsistence hunter, gatherer, also an Iditarod finisher, along with his family, is definitely doing his best to make sure that his way of life is is carried on, at least in rural Alaska. Mike, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Okay, thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.
So that was an interview we conducted with Mike Williams, a Yupiaq Native Alaskan from Akiak, Alaska, for our project on Alaska's food system at UAA's environmental ethics class. If you have any questions or comments, please send me an email at rnforto, Forto, @alaska.edu. Thank you.